Hey Dave, ever have those days where you're just dropping everything?
Not really, man.
Well, let's see. I stubbed my toe, dropped 3 books, and clipped my shoulder on the wall just walking through.
Oh, wow. All this week?
That was just this morning. You don't want to know what happened over the last week.
Ted, maybe we should discuss what dumping decks in D&D means. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Don't fumble your way through YouTube. Keep getting those D&D videos flowing through your YouTube feed by clicking that subscribe button.
And to keep those Nerdarchy vids flowing through that YouTube feed, don't trip over yourself when you ring that notification bell.
So before we jump into what it means to dump decks in D&D, I just want to take a moment to let you guys know, if you enjoy the Nerdarchy content, we have a second channel called Nerdarchy Live. There's a link in the description, and we basically do, as stated, live stuff over there, whether it's interviews and live chats with other people in the RPG niche, gameplays, or it's just me, Ted, or Doug hanging out with you fine nerds. That's a place where you can do it. Link will be down in the description. With that, let's get into it. Ted, why is Dex the super stat in 5e D&D?
I mean, Dex has always been super important. You know, it's attached to your armor class. It's attached to your initiative. It's one of the quote unquote good saves if you want to go down that direction. It's one of the saves that comes up more often. It's your way to avoid the fireball. You know, that kind of stuff. And it comes up so much more often than other stats, with those things.
So first, we're going to talk a little bit about Dex mechanically, as we've already started, and then we'll go into some of the kind of RP parts of it and talk about why you might dump Dex and what that might look at. But let's first of all, mechanically, what are some ways we can get around having a low Dex?
I mean, that's pretty easy. There's I mentioned initiative. So there's other ways to boost your initiative besides your dexterity, and a variety of classes are going to wind up giving you those kind of things. So if you go into Bard, Jack of all trades is going to give you half your proficiency bonus to things that you already don't, and that's actually going to include initiative.
Yeah, and also Fighter, if you go Champion, you're going to get a remarkable athlete that does something very similar to that.
Paladin, I know it's a high level, but one of their Rs is going to allow you to add your charisma modifier to your initiative.
It's not super high, 7th level. I mean, mid-game, it's a level we get to at least, right? And
that's true.
Not only does it help you, but it's going to help the rest of your party as well. So maybe you don't even have to be the paladin to get help with that low dex score. Just stand next to them.
We're also going to get that charisma modifier from Rogue if you go with Swashbuckler.
You also have Ranger. The Gloomstalker allows you to add your wisdom modifier to your initiative, so that's going to help out some. And then finally, we have the Wizard, the War Wizard tradition gets Tactical Wit, which allows you to add your intelligence modifier. I mean, I actually played a character like this. They didn't dump their dex, but they had a low dex, so this actually evened things out and helped out. So all of those ways will help you for initiative from your class features. Also, worth mentioning from class features is there's a bunch of classes that are also going to give you access to heavy armor. So now where you don't have to worry about our dex modifier when we're wearing armor as well. And also, you want to avoid medium armor and light armor if you have a penalty to dex, because I believe you then get that penalty to your armor class.
You do indeed. It's a gamble, whatever direction you're going. So as Dave says, if you have a low dex, you definitely want to get into that heavy armor to remove that penalty from your armor class. So there's 2 feats that you can be able to grab that immediately jump out to mind. Number 1 is Alert. That's going to add just a flat +5 to your initiative modifier. You might not be quick, physically, but you are more prepared and you are ready for danger, so you can kind of mitigate that, as well as Resilient is actually going to give you proficiency in your dexterity saving throws if you go with specifically dexterity, and it's going to bump your dex by 1 as well, so that helps in multiple regards.
So we said 2, but when I think about it, there's a third kind of, right? If you have a class that is already giving you medium armor and you take the feat heavily armored, One, it's a half feat, and it's going to give you a bump to a stat, so that's super helpful. And it's also going to give you a bump to a stat that you might want more than Dex, like Strength or Con. But it's also going to give you proficiency in heavy armor. So now you don't have to worry about your armor class as much as well. So it's going to be super helpful.
So next up, we have the category of spells. This is going to be things that are going to be able to help you out. First jumps to my mind is enhance ability, and this is going to give you advantage on a number of different things. But for this particular video, we're looking at applying it to dexterity.
So next up, we have Gift of Lacrinity. That one's actually from the Critical Role book, and if you're a fan of Critical Role and you watch the show, you've seen it used. They stopped using, or they started using it, after I stopped watching. But it's a cool spell that you cast it lasts a while, and you basically get to roll an extra die to add to your initiative check. So it's going to be super helpful.
We have Haste. This is a super spell in my opinion. Does a lot for you. It's going to boost your armor class as well as give you extra actions in combat. So super helpful, and will definitely help counterbalance that low dexterity.
Yeah, it counterbalances in two ways. Like you mentioned, increases your armor class, but the other way is it gives you advantage on dexterity saving throws, which is an area where we're going to need a little help anyway. So it's perfect. Now, another great spell to help with this, of course, it's like an 8th or 9th level spell, is Foresight. Cast it the last 8 hours, and you basically have advantage on everything. And I don't think you can be surprised, much like the alert feat. So it's super useful. I might even be wrong about that point. But it's going to give you advantage on so many things that it's going to compensate for that low dex. But it compensates for low anything, really.
Yeah, Foresight's a fabulous spell, but like as Dave says, it's a high level spell, and I think it is 8th, so might be waiting a while to be using that one.
Yeah, don't bank on that one for sure. Okay, so now let's get into, well, you've dumped your dex stat for whatever reason, against all conventional wisdom when it comes to character optimization and building a character in a game like 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. But that's okay, because you know what, optimization and min-maxing and power gaming, they aren't everything. There's role playing. There might be reasons why you have a low dex score.
And when we look at these kinds of things, I think it's good to mention that as a player character, I think it's fun to be able to put forth, well, I have a low stat for a reason. I have a flaw that can be exploited, by the DM, to make the story fun, interesting, to make it challenging for my character. And it's, so I'm super happy to use the basic stat array. So I know I had a character who was a tiefling, and we like to play the older version of the tiefling that, that demonic, heritage, or that fiendish heritage comes out when you hit puberty, and before that you were whatever race you were previously. And that's what I went with, and my character was mobbed, assaulted, and beaten and left for dead. So he didn't heal right. He didn't, function properly, as he recovered from his assault and survived as a hermit. But so obviously, bones aren't set right. He's got a limp, so I dumped Dex, and that fit. Yeah, he wound up going to martial class and, was able to wear that heavy armor. It counterbalanced that aspect, but it still meant he was a little bit, slower to move, still meant that, when somebody's dropping fireballs, he's probably failing that saving throw.
Yeah, I played a character that was very similar to that suffered a traumatic injury, and because of that, he had a bad leg, and so he couldn't move quite the way they used to, right? That's one way of doing it. You could also have a character that just is a klutz, right? They're very clumsy, and they're always bumping and bumbling things, so you could play that aspect up. That might even be fun to mix with a character that has some kind of bend luck feature or lucky or something along that line. So sometimes you make cool things happen and things go your way, but it's pure luck that it happens that way because of your clumsiness. So you can kind of lean into it that way.
Yeah, and those kind of characters are just as much fun, if not more so, to more so fun to play, because as you get into that dice manipulation aspect, you can, as Dave says, explain it that it's just you fumbling around, but sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, your character might have poor hand and eye coordination. There could be different things, like maybe you lost an eye, but your character, for whatever reason, never adjusted. Maybe they have a problem with their equilibrium. There could be a lot of different reasons to explain it in game, and these just become cool like quirks about your character that makes them different than the other characters in the party.
When you look at your stats, whatever the numbers are, whatever your modifiers are, all of these things should equate to who your character is. Everything should be explained. You could be intelligent and not necessarily book smart. You could be incredibly dexterous but not trained in athleticism. You've got natural aptitude versus learning. So when you look at these, what does your dump stat mean? You absolutely should be trying to figure out who your character is by the numbers.
Absolutely. So, let us know about any character that you've played where you've dumped your decks. I mean, as soon as we brought this up, Nerdator Doug, our content director over on the Nerdarchy website and many other aspects of Nerdarchy, instantly showed that they did a screen share of a character that they just made, circling decks, which was an 8 -1 dump stat for one of the next games coming up.
Did you enjoy this conversation where we're diving into the D&D stats? If you did, you might want to check out this video, D&D Stats Explained, the one stat you cannot dump.
Want to support the creation of more D&D videos on the Nerdarchy channel? Then consider supporting us over on Patreon.
As a thank you, we're creating new 5e content for players and DMs alike. We do monthly giveaways and so much more.
So with that, until next time, stay
nerdy.